Stop saving money. Stop getting out of debt. Everything you learned about wealth is obsolete.
Why would you save money when they're printing trillions? The gap between the 1% and 99% is massive. You've got to realize it's not just about money. You need to step back and see the bigger picture.
So what do you do? We all have a poor person inside us. There's still a poor person inside me. There's also a middle-class person who wants security, who wants a steady paycheck.
And there's a rich person. They're all inside us, except that part was never taught. You learned to go to school, get a job, get a paycheck. You didn't learn how to become rich.
If you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my rich dad never gave me money. He said a paycheck is one of the most damaging things in life. He said the moment you accept a paycheck, you become an employee. And that's a mindset. So Rich Dad never paid me. My poor dad went crazy. Pay the kid. You've got to pay people. But Rich Dad said it's not that paychecks are bad. It's that you don't want to become a slave to money. As an entrepreneur, if Rich Dad folds, I'll just start another company. I don't need a paycheck. I don't need somebody to take care of me. If our government doesn't like me, I'll move to another country because they need entrepreneurs there. So being an entrepreneur isn't really about business. It's actually a mindset, a skill set, and a different set of rules. I don't operate by small business rules. I operate by big business rules. Entrepreneur is first a mindset, a skill set, and rules. The rules are different if you're an employee versus small business. The mindset is different. The skill set is different. If you could say one thing to someone who's never been an entrepreneur and is thinking about taking that leap of faith to become an entrepreneur, what would you tell them? Well, I'd tell them what happened to me. I still remember my last paycheck. It was one of the worst days of my life. I was in Puerto Rico working for Xerox, and my boss gave me my last paycheck. It wasn't a paycheck. It was a bonus check. I think it was about $30,000 after taxes. So I got this check, and I went, holy mackerel. I was excited, but also disturbed. This other guy came up to me. His name was John. And John said to me, "You'll be back." I said, "Why?" He says, "Because you're going to fail." I looked at him and almost swore. Look, you left Xerox, you failed, and you came back. I may fail, but I'm never coming back. And that's the attitude. If you say, well, if I fail, I'll go back to mom and dad, then that's what you can do. When I became an entrepreneur, I had no money. I didn't have a paycheck for years, but my rich dad encouraged me not to have one. He said, without a paycheck, you'll get hungry and smart, and it will be a test of your character. Will you become a crook? Will you become dishonest? Will you cheat and steal? Or will you become a better human being? That's really the benefit of being an entrepreneur. You find out who you are when you have nothing. You always have to look at the big picture. Too many people go, well, what's going to happen to me? When you see the big picture, you also know if something bad happens, something good will happen. But you've got to prepare for what's coming. The next 20 years are not going to be like the last 20 years. When you and I go to the supermarket and buy a carton of milk, we always check the expiration date. But most people never check the expiration date on their brain. Instead of getting out of debt, I get into debt. I just refinanced $300 million in debt from 5% interest to 2.5%. I made money because my money went down. So more money comes in every month. So while some financial experts say get out of debt, I'm saying learn how to use debt. When I came back from serving in Vietnam in January '73, the first thing my rich dad said to me was go to school to learn how to invest in real estate. It wasn't about real estate. It was about how to use debt and taxes. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and middle class. All those rich people who are doctors and lawyers, those guys are getting creamed, and they don't know why. Are doctors getting creamed? Oh yeah, they're making more money, but taking home less. A doctor shouted that he was happy. He said, "Oh, I think I finally made $1 million." This was just 3 weeks ago. So I said, "Yeah? How much do you pay in taxes?" He says, $750,000 in taxes. So his net was about $400,000. Not bad. But when I make $1 million, I keep $1 million. And the reason is I don't work for money. Make sure if you work for money, that money is taxed. The first lesson of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the rich don't work for money. Instead, what we do as entrepreneurs is we create businesses. We acquire real estate. I don't invest in the stock market. The reason is, as an entrepreneur, I have more control over my income, my revenue, and my tax payments. I don't pay taxes because I'm an entrepreneur and a real estate investor. So when I make $1 million as an entrepreneur, I immediately invest in real estate and go up 4 to 1. So I put $1 million into real estate and get $4 million from the bank. That's why I love banks. But banks are screwing everybody else. It's terrible, but it's good for me. When they print, it's bad for people who work for money. Because when they print, savers get creamed, and people who work for money get creamed. When they print, debtors get richer. Debt and taxes make the rich richer. Debt and taxes make the poor and middle class poorer. If you have an obsolete idea, you get obsolete results. Most people have the idea, go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, get out of debt, buy a house, invest long term. That's obsolete. The world changed in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard and money became debt. What if we got rid of school? Would it be better if we had no education system at all? No. I'm saying education is more important than ever before. It's just obsolete. There's Moore's Law that says information doubles every 18 months. That means everything is obsolete in 18 months. So when you graduate from school, you're already obsolete. That's why I'm an old guy. I meet my friends and they went to Harvard. Yeah, you went to Harvard. Yeah, that was 50 years ago. Today, banks charge interest for saving money. That means banks don't want your money because they've printed too much. That's why there's a bubble in real estate and stocks. People are getting rid of cash. As I've said here, savers are losers and cash is trash. But people say, well, I want a high-income job. Well, that's an obsolete idea. Get out of debt. That's an obsolete idea. You've got to learn how to get into debt, how to use debt to get rich. And they'll never teach you about taxes. The reason the 1% is here and the 99% is going this way is because when they print money, inflation and taxes are crushing them. I'm going to make money and start a business and make a lot of money. What we're really talking about is you can smell the roses. That's not what a real entrepreneur does. Most entrepreneurs in America, 24 to 28 million small business owners, are one-person entrepreneurs. They're a business that's not an employee. So what happens is, if those people don't really understand what any entrepreneur is, so most people are self-employed, but they're not really entrepreneurs. Self-employed pays the highest taxes of all. Nobody tells you that. Yeah, that's also called entrepreneurship, but what we're really saying is there's no such thing as a bad economy externally. You and I, we all have an external economy. But we also have an internal economy, and willpower changes our internal economy. So I can see good, I can see bad. I really don't care. I'm going to be rich anyway. But a poor person with a poor personal economy, all they're going to see is a bad economy because they don't know how to make money in any economy. And middle-class people have middle-class economies. What they want is a nice house, steady paycheck, a job, and a car. So if you take their job away from them, it's a disaster. For an entrepreneur, it's not a big deal because they don't have a job anyway. What I tell people is what Bucky Fuller taught me. There are always two sides. You know what I mean? Use the plural, minimum two. So if you think the economy is bad, the economy is bad for you. If you think steady employment is important, you're going to see an economy with no jobs. Your economy versus the external economy, where you can control versus where you can't control. Yes, it's called internal focus versus external focus. So a real entrepreneur is internally focused. And when they fall, they say, oh, this is good because I'm going to come up higher. An average person falls and says, oh, I'm going to get some Prozac. Or even if somebody makes a mistake, every mistake doesn't matter. Mistakes matter, you didn't know anything. But a real entrepreneur, whether they fall or whatever, they always come up. Whatever happens to them, they get stronger, smarter, happier. But a person with a weak internal mindset is so afraid of what happens that it generally happens. People who are afraid of losing their jobs generally lose their jobs.
Yeah, without a doubt. Everything is created through you. Yes, the entrepreneur's first job is to control what's inside here, not outside. The moment you accept a paycheck, you become an employee. You've got to be stronger than that. It's about internal control.
This is Logos Mindset. If this changed your perspective on wealth, subscribe and join us on the path to financial intelligence. The world has changed. Your mindset must too.